Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
But here we are. New episode, new topic, new guest hosts and co-hosts. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Glue Boy, you can start it off.
All right, yeah. Well, my name's Glue Boy. I do Warhammer 40k lore videos. I mean, obviously. Primarily trying to give that fun sort of lore where going more comedic in like a major kill style. And yeah, YouTube channel's the same name, Glue Boy.
Awesome.
All right, Ian, how about you?
Yeah, I've actually got two channels that I work on. One's Level 9 Laboratory, where I kind of just make stuff out of clay and little dioramas. And then Hyperspace Hobbies, which is a little bit more focused around like the tactics and some lore stuff in 40k. I kind of run that with a couple friends. Space Marine Steve is one of the guys, and our other friend Mike. We all kind of try to contribute when we can to get information, and it's all just, stupid, having fun sort of stuff.
All right. Well, just want to give you guys a heads up. Today's episode, we are just talking about the start of the Great Crusade, just a brief overview, as well as talking about the Primarchs mostly. Not too in-depth, but, just enough that people who aren't familiar get a general idea about them, but people who already do know can know our thoughts on them. Which ones we like, which ones we think are just not as, well written as some people like to think. Maybe some of the ones that actually aren't, good at all, that just suck overall. Lorgar.
This is extra funny. I still love this topic strictly because my most popular video is people yelling at me about my Primarch opinions being stupid. So I am more than delighted to continually share them.
Does that mean you are a Lorgar lover?
No, Lorgar sucks.
Okay,
good. Don't get me wrong. I hate him. My most controversial opinion is that I find Sanguinius boring.
You're not too wrong, actually, because, Sanguinius sometimes he can be fascinating, but at the same time, it really depends on who writes him. I feel like it comes down to, it all depends on, the writer specifically. I think Chris Wright is really good at writing Lehman and Russ. He's pretty good, even though Lehman Russ's Primarch book spends a good chunk of it focusing on Lionel Johnson, from what I've heard. And my at my local Warhammer store, my friend Zach, who runs the store, he's a diehard Space Wolf fan, die on the hill defending them no matter what. And he hates that book so much. Which is always funny because as a Dark Angels fan, I like to rub it in his face.
I mean, you have to. You have to do that.
I'm a big Space Wolves fan, and I enjoy it when everyone kind of tags on the Space Vikings and gives them the hate.
It's they're just space furries. It's yeah, but they're awesome.
They are very cool.
And they have one of the lowest numbers of them. I don't even think any of them have actually turned traitor. I think they have one of the most loyal legions.
There's some lore reason that I forget it off the top of my head that Space Wolves just really can't. I only know this because I have a custom Black Legion force where I paint the right arm and pauldron, the left, whichever one has the chapter heraldry. Is the color of their home legion or chapter, and I have one Space Wolf because I had a Terminator with just covered in furs, and I was like, oh yeah, Space Wolf. And then my buddy who really owns the Warhammer store in town is that's lore inaccurate, right? And I'm like, damn it, I didn't know that.
Well, excuse me.
Yeah, and it was in oh, I don't care, it's still cool, and he's like, yeah, it is still cool, I'm just giving you shit.
God damn. But In my last episode, I kind of went over the Unification War. I feel like I should have went more in depth because there is some stuff I miss. I focused more on how Warhammer, at the end of the day, is still a satire of mostly Frank Herbert's Dune. Same thing. AI rises up, ruins everything. But a lot worse here. And Dark Age of Technology, Age of Strife, Rise of the Emperor, Thunder Warriors definitely touched on that disaster.
Disaster? What are you talking about? That's
disaster. That never happened.
They were necessary. They were necessary.
Yeah, they were necessary.
Just don't ask where they are right now.
No,
don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
They walked, and then the mutations made them crawl, so Space Marines could run.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, Unification Wars ended, and with that victory, Terra was basically unified under the Emperor. And especially once he decided, you know what, I don't like religion, let's just burn all the churches down, which led to that fantastic short story, The Last Church.
Best one.
Best story, just so great. But with that achievement behind him, Emperor went to set his purpose of uniting mankind. What he believed to be his manifest destiny of mankind should rule the galaxy, nobody else. Not the elves, not the mushroom berserkers, not the orcs, none of that. But this undertaking became known as the Great Crusade, so the Emperor just went and extensively just prepared for this, creating the Astro Telepath Corps, creating the Astronomicon, and, chief upon this, destroying the Thunder Warriors, which I still think was a big mask off moment for the Emperor.
Well, it kind of sounded like they were gonna die anyways. It was just easier to get rid of them before they started to pick up on the fact that the mutations were like failing them.
Oh yeah, because it's like, yeah, they are stronger than Space Marines, but that corrupted just mutations. That's just too much.
And you can't be like trying to conquer the galaxy with people that just might randomly shut off.
Yeah, and just start killing each other for no reason.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just made a bunch of Space Marine orcs, essentially, and one day they're going to realize.
It's like they're going to realize, like, nobody to fight. Let's just fight each other. Just kill each other. But, it eventually led to the creation of My Boys, the Dark Angels, the first, the best. Mm-hmm. Basically with the Custodes killing off the Thunder Warriors, most of the Emperor's confidants like Amar Astardi and Sedain and a lot of others kind of just either deserting him or getting killed or dying and all sorts of stuff. But, Erda stayed by him, Malcador stayed by him, and he went on to create his better Space Marine legions, including the Primarchs to lead these legions. And fun fact that I didn't know until I really got into the lore was that Primarchs technically already existed with Thunder Warriors. They were just generals, that's it. And I feel like that's a callback to, I guess, the really old lore when Primarchs weren't really a thing.
Yeah, like the Rogue Trader era where Lehman Russ was just a guy, like just a regular Space Marine, and I think they called him, he was the chapter master back then. Or Primarch was another word for general. It was one of those where it's like very clearly that Lehman Russ is not that.
And then it's like, Horus was just a general who became War Master. He wasn't the Emperor's son. He was just some dude. Some spiteful dude. And it's like, that's not bad. It's just, I think the lore's a lot better now, changing it, because Space Marines used to be basically cops. And it's like, I prefer the way they are now. It's a lot better than just them being just dread. We got the Arbites for that.
Yeah.
Arbites,
they're essentially just like paladins, but in the bad way. If you've ever played like D&D and one of the characters was like a devout paladin and really played their character, it definitely like threw some wrenches into the mix as soon as it's like, oh, we could go and talk to those people, and he's like, nope, can't talk to them. I have to kill them all because they're worshiping some other god. And you're like, it's too bad. Technology lost, firebomb the whole thing.
Yeah, someone who goes like real hard in that lawful good.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's actually, it is interesting, especially with the whole like Horus part specifically, because I did a lot of research for a video I did on going over the missing Primarchs and Legions and like trying to compound all of the information we have on them. And one of the main things was I found an interview with Rick Priestley where he mainly debunks the it was like Q&A where he debunks the thing that like originally they were meant to be homebrew factions for the fans, but that was a scrapped idea from Games Workshop. That's not true. They were homages to missing Roman legions back in the day, and this was back in the old era of 40k lore, where they kind of just threw names at a wall and like didn't expect to have them expanded on. Because like back then, they made up the Horus Heresy. It's like, oh yeah, 10,000 years, there's the Horus Heresy. Yeah, the Horus did something, and then that was literally it. And like nothing else.
Alliteration, baby.
Yeah, because he said like I left the company like after that, like around after. I never like expected obviously the Horus Heresy to be its own like setting with like a giant book series. Like so all this stuff was like just created after the fact without me like putting any thought into it back in like second edition.
I never knew that. That's awesome.
It's funny enough because when I was rereading Horus Rising last week, and at the end of the book, it's Dan Abnett talking about the book. He said, yeah, I had no idea this was gonna, become what it was. I kind of just went in there. They say, hey, you want to write a book about the Horus Heresy? He's like, okay, sure, let me make up some stuff. And then it's like, that became the blueprint for just everything. And it's still probably one of the best written books in the whole Black Library.
Isn't that just the Dan Abnett way? He goes in, he makes some stuff up, and then everyone's like, that's gospel. Because that's exactly what he did. That's what he did with the guardsmen. He created all of the lingo and like tech for guardsmen, and then everyone else is like,
Gaunt's
all right,
Ghost, baby.
He knows what he's doing. I still need to read Gaunt's Ghost. I'm very embarrassed about that fact.
Oh my gosh, dude. Don't rush it, but I have to tell you, it's probably like the best franchise in the Black Library. It's like Hogan's Heroes, basically. It's just so good.
I'm curious, Glue Boy, what did you find about the 2nd and 11th Legions? Like, was there anything besides the fact that, like, the Emperor kind of sought out and killed them himself? Because I remember reading, I can't remember where, that the Space Wolves were actually dispatched to finish off one of the legions. I think it was the 2nd. And then everybody had their, like, memories permanently wiped.
So it's interesting. There's a lot of compounding stuff because right now the two big contenders on who killed the two legions is either Leman Russ with the Space Wolves or fun news for you over there, Lionel Johnson and the Dark Angels. Because the Dark Angels actually had some tech during the Great Crusade that when you killed somebody, everyone would kind of forget who they were.
Really?
Yeah, there was a battle where they were described how they were fighting some Xenos and someone like shot an alien in the face and then like watched as like his friends forgot who he was as he died. And it's like, oh damn. So
it's like the Men in Black on steroids.
Yeah. So essentially the stuff we know is I'm firmly in the camp that it was Leman Russ and Space Wolves. I think there's more evidence like leading up to it. There's one part of evidence I did get wrong because during the Siege of Prospero, they're like, we fought Space Marines before. And I'm like, that's a smoking gun. But no, they're talking about how they fought Angron and the World Eaters to prove a point that Angron firmly did not understand.
Right.
But
and they were named the Emperor's executioners too, which kind of made me think like an executioner. Yeah, it kind of fits that bill.
The most that I found, and also actually, they did get their memories wiped. It was a plan by Malkador, Gilliman, and Dorn. There's a book in particular. I want to see if I can find the story. There it is. A short story called "The Chamber at the End of Memory," which like sounds like a Kingdom Hearts tagline, but is the story of Dorn figuring out what Malkador did, getting super pissed, and Malkador being like, "My man, you told me to do this. If I like," so he like tells him what happened, and then Dorn's like, "Yeah, wipe my memory again, please."
Yikes!
But the theory that I have going on is that the 11th Primarch did some like actual bad shit, and the second one kind of got dragged along with it because in another book, in the book Extermination, an Alpha Legionnaire is looking through like some records and notices that the 11th Legion, like the 11th Primarch, is full on information redacted, and the second Legion and Primarch is like file missing.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like I'll chill that video. I think it's very good. It's because I did a lot of extra work on that one, but yeah, the my missing Primarch video, I think I roughly was able to go over all the information we have, which isn't a lot, obviously.
You know, it's funny because I was reading the Custodes Codex for 9th edition, and I remember the Dark Cells, and they mentioned the Dark Cells, and they talked about, I believe it's called the Chamber of the 11th and something of the second, and people believe, oh, maybe those Primarchs aren't dead. Instead, they're just imprisoned. Maybe they're trying to fix them.
I doubt it. If I had to guess, if I had to guess based on just everything I've read, it's probably all the shit they had. Like, this is just like this is like their equipment, some remnants of it, and just like put it all here because everything that they owned was destroyed. Like, they had their statues melted down and turned into like the walkways in the Imperial Palace. It was very clear Malkador was like, I just need to get rid of all this from orders from Big E, and that's something that Horus was very pissed about, which is where Horus got chokeslammed and then pulled the like, I brought you into this world, I can take you out of it too.
It's like, yes, Malkador, you're such a great uncle. You and Big E, the best parental figures, just the best. Oh
yeah, the two best. I mean, they raised Alfarius just fine. Look at him. He's doing great, probably.
Or was it Omegon the whole time?
X-Files
Is it all
theme?
just a lie? Maybe Alfarius and Omegon were never real. Ooh, I don't know anymore.
Well, the Emperor like openly admitted that he did not care about the Primarchs at all.
Nope.
He was like, oh, they're just weapons. They call me father just because I created them, and it's natural for any creation to refer to its creator as father. But he's like, I don't care about them at all. I only want to use them as weapons. And that's when Erda was like, this guy's maybe a little bit too psycho. I need to help these poor little babies out.
Everyone hates Erda.
And of course, that's what started the scattering of the Primarchs.
Yeah, because it's like, people got to understand. You may be upset with Erda, but understanding from her perspective, especially because she was manipulated by the Chaos Gods, it's like she wasn't entirely wrong about what was going to happen to the Primarchs. It's just, oh my god, he's going to just use them as weapons. Is he going to kill them like the Thunder Warriors once their job is complete? You know, what's going to happen? So in the panic and probably Zeech messing with her brain, she sent them off into the warp, which not great mothering skills, but at the same time, I kind of understand where she was coming from.
Well, I don't think she sent them into the warp. I know that she dropped the Geller field that they had around the laboratory. I can't remember if she opened up a portal and just sent them scattering, but I think that the Chaos Gods acted at the moment that she dropped the Geller field, as if they knew it was going to happen.
There's varying accounts to what actually happened.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because I know Saturnine says one thing and another book says another.
As someone who knows criminally little about Erda, as I have not looked into that whole part at all yet, to be fair, if I was working with a guy and he was like, hell yeah, you know this kid project? I can't wait to not treat them like people and use them as weapons. It's going to be so sick. We just have like 20 human beings that we're just going to treat like shit. High five, Erda. I'd also be like, I kind of want out of this.
Yeah, slowly backing out of the room.
Yeah, I'd also like back out and be like, maybe I set them free.
Especially because saying he used her genetic material, I don't even know if she knew about that. Like, I don't know if she found out before. It's like, I feel like she may have not known about them until they were already made. He's like, oh yeah, by the way, I used your DNA and mine, so congratulations, you're a mom.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Not a great look. And then, no matter what happened, the Primarchs got cast into the warp and basically got different variations of Superman's backstory. And it's funny because during their scattering, for a split second, the Emperor surprised Malcador and Valdor when he referred to them as his sons, but Valdor saw it as like just, an ebb in attempts to suppress his human emotions. Like, oh, that was a slip. That was a Freudian slip. You didn't mean to say sons. You meant number 1 through 18, right? Or 1 through 20, excuse me.
Yeah.
But, no matter what happens, point is they ended up just scattering across the galaxy. Malcador thought they were dead or corrupted by the warp. Emperor's like, nah, I can still feel them. They're out there. We'll find them. But first things first, we got to conquer the moon and Mars, just full Gru style.
Well, wasn't the Emperor still in contact with, I want to say Magnus? I think it was Magnus.
He was. Once Magnus
Yes.
had his psychic awakening when he got older, yeah.
Right, yeah. Then he was like, oh, hey, you're hanging out on this channel too. And they're like, yeah, who are you? I'm your dad.
You found the Discordia, sir.
Yeah.
There's also the only other one is Horus is implied that he keeps getting visions that are. I think you can make a point that they are like very directed messages towards him rather than just like visions of whatever. But I know Horus at least had something, and then other than that, it was just like a lot of them having feelings of like I feel like I'm built different. I feel like I'm cooler than everyone around me.
Well, that would be
The
pretty.
Lion definitely felt that.
Absolutely, yeah. He was like, oh, I'm just on my own, buck naked in the woods, just killing chaos monsters, and then a bunch of people like knights on horses essentially ride up, and he's like, he'd be huge, right? He'd be like 10 feet tall and just shredded, and they start to talk to him, and he like deciphers their language instantly, and it's like, oh, hey, you guys have intelligence. Well, let's gang up. Let's go.
Luther's like, well, I guess I'll adopt you. And Lion's like, thanks, nerd. Give me your top title. Give it all to me.
How about
Thanks,
like, I
bozo.
challenge you. I challenge you to a duel, and then he duels anybody and always wins.
It's like when you just get a pro wrestler who doesn't deserve to be the world heavyweight champion. They just get it because, their name's Roman Reigns, but I digress.
I'm not up on that.
I know nothing about wrestling.
That's for our wrestling fans. No, I'm just it was like, you don't deserve it. You just got it because, you're just top dog. It's fine. But, it's funny that, the way the Primarchs, there's a common argument I see in the community about the Primarchs is if they all had Gilliman's upbringing, would they be okay? Would they just not have been as jacked up as they were? Would Conrad Kurz just be the worst version of Batman? Or would he be a decent human being despite him, always seeing the worst timelines?
All he needed was one person to be like, hey, buddy, hey, pal. Just like everything will turn out fine. It's me, your adopted dad. Here's us, the Wayne family. Let's give you a proper home. Like nothing bad will happen to us.
My name's Alfredo. You could
Alfredius.
Alfredius.
Because that's an interesting discussion. Is just like if all of the Primarchs had the upbringing of because I think the three most well-adjusted Primarchs that I can point to is Vulcan, Corvus Corax, and Gilliman. All three of them only because they had an adoptive parent that actually gave a shit about their existence and loved them. And all three of them are noted to be kind of the nicest and the coolest people you could encounter.
Well, I think the Lion also kind of fell into that category as well. He, for the first decade, he was by himself, but he eventually met a fairly well gathered group of people that were built on honor and code, and he kind of fully adapted that stuff. So I think he kind of falls into that hit a decent. Well, he didn't hit a decent planet because the place was infested with chaos, but he eventually found a good group of people. Whereas Angron, holy, that story is awful.
Jeez.
Angron would have been better. If he went anywhere else, he would have been better.
Literally.
Put F in the chat.
Especially since Angron's like Primarch power that he was born with was something about like soothing and healing the people around him.
Yes,
he was the healer.
It was empathy. It was a way that he could steal your sadness, essentially just absorb your sadness from you.
The taste of irony could not be stronger if they just put lemon juice on it. That's just...
It was like Mantis
God.
from Guardians of the Galaxy. He could just be like, hey, you should be happy. And then that would have worked.
I'm not even happy. But yeah, then it's like, you have people like Perturabo who, let's be honest, he definitely came up kind of... His background was fine. It's just his dad was an asshole, but the planet was run by assholes who were just... That planet, Olympia, felt so much like Game of Thrones, where all these great houses are trying to kill each other. And it's like Perturabo's dad, the tyrant, I forget his name, but he wasn't that awful of a person. Sure, he used Perturabo, but Perturabo still had some good siblings who actually cared about him. And despite all that, Perturabo's like, oh, woe is me. Everything's so awful for me. People just want to use me. And it's like, Caliphany is actually a decent person to you, Pert. Like, you could, sit back and stop complaining so much.
Yeah, it's like Perturabo, I think you could very easily make the argument that a lot of that is nature over nurture. Because, like, reading up on Perturabo and, like, the part of the Primarch book I have read, I have not finished it, like... That he actually was cared about. His, like, as much as his dad, like the Tyrant of Lycos, was kind of a tool, not gonna lie. He was, a tyrant of Lycos. But he also, like, truly cared and did his best to, like, integrate Perturabo and his family and make him feel welcome. And, like, all of it was just rejected by Perturabo. And, like, on that end, it felt like he's just kind of hard-coded to be kind of like a tool. And then also it does not help that Perturabo cannot tell people no, because he's very strong in the idea of, if I say no, that means I'm weak and I'm less of a man for it. And so, like, I don't want to be your general, Dad, but because I'm so petty, fine, I'll just do all the wars for you then. Will that make you happy? Will that let me build aqueducts if I destroy everything?
I'll just seethe in silence.
And then his dad is like, the pipe. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Cool. Thanks, son.
No, never a thanks. That was like the thing.
Yeah.
Perturabo was like constantly doing stuff and like wanting approval and never got it.
And it probably didn't help that he had the most rawly scientific brain of all the Primarchs, like instantly figuring out everything. He had no feeling of surprise or discovery, except for like one or two moments in his Primarch book where he actually felt like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. So that's what that feels like, because he just figures out everything instantly. I was like, that's gotta suck, honestly.
Yeah, he has some of the most interesting Primarch like weaknesses in like powers in that aspect. Like, I also don't like Perturabo, Rogaldorn supremacy, but like he's I understand why he's like that, because if I had to deal with his two powers of being able to look at a thing and immediately understand it perfectly, and like you never have that feeling of like that eureka moment, you never feel accomplished because like I looked at a book and now I'm an expert in this subject. Like that's lame. And also just having a constant like knowledge of where the Eye of Terror is and having that perpetual feeling of being watched and judged by it is a little rough. I feel like maybe the Emperor was just making a little prank child in like his test tubes when he was creating him. Like, I'm just gonna give these two powers and see what happens.
Man, it must suck for him. It's like, and then he's like, oh, I'm jealous of Dorn. It's like, yeah, because Dorn is more well-adjusted than you. He doesn't freaking complain. He just does it. He's like, yeah, it's my job. I do it. End of story. Like, to me, Dorn is basically Wayne from Letterkenny. Like, they're the same person.
I need to see
It's such a
Letterkenny,
great show. It's so funny. But once you do see it, you'll know exactly what I mean. Because Wayne and Dorn are just like hardcore. Yeah, we know what the job is. We'll get it done. And we don't complain. It's our job. It's our duty. That's what we do. But he is also kind of sassy. Like when he roasted Sigismund in Horus Rising.
Yeah. I'm also, even though it is if the Emperor had a text speech device meme, I do firmly believe the only reason Dorn got the job is because he was the only one who would have made the palace gold.
Oh yeah,
Perturabo
made it steel.
He refuses to paint everything, and I was like, yeah, no, that this has more evidence now. I think that's more of the reason. It's just Dorn would make it look pretty. Perturabo would be like, I don't want to paint it, Dad. There's no tactical advantage in painting it.
It's like, this looks like an insane asylum. I hate it.
You made me an indestructible metal box. Congratulations, but this isn't a palace.
It's a giant cube. Like, what is this? It's like, what is this? It's just dark. It's grimy. It's like, yeah, but the material is very durable. It's like, damn it, Birdie.
But that's like part of his faults, right? Is that he can't see the joy. He can only see like I don't even know how to phrase this. He can only see just like the end. Yeah, the raw data. He can see the end of the means, but not any other thing. Like, oh, you could paint this to make it look nice, but no, that's not even in his like brain. He's just, oh, complete it so it's done. Make it the best, fortification we possibly can, and then that's it. That would be a very depressing kind of lifestyle, not to be able to enjoy the kind of arts of life.
Yeah, it's especially sucks. When you have like 3 brothers surrounding you that are all, or actually I guess maybe 4 if you put Dorn in this pile of like really talented craftsmen, being Fulgrim, Ferrus Manus, and Vulcan. And all of them love the artistry of it. They love just creating something really interesting and cool. And then like there's him standing there of like, I am a master at this, but like I don't understand why you're like putting all these fancy fun flares on your shit.
Yeah, but before we go further, for those in our audience who are unfamiliar with the Primarchs, I'm just going to give a quick rundown of all of them and what exactly their speciality is. And I think will be really fun if we each talk about or just debate which ones are our favorites and which ones just suck the most. They're just the absolute worst, and just I can't even stomach them. First, we got Lionel Johnson, of course, the first, the biggest brother, the absolute Geralt of Rivia peak, also known as the Lion, raised on the feudal death world of Caliban, filled with nightmarish beasts, and his speciality being, tactical flexibility and strategic mastery, that then carried over to his Legion, the Dark Angels, who specialize in adaptable warfare, switching tactics, and also having access to Dark Age of technology weapons, which is pretty awesome, like the Men in Black gun. Of course, there's Primarch number 2. But we move on to Griffith, Fulgrim, number 3. Like, tell me he is not Griffith. He is absolutely just Griffith from Berserk. They look alike. They wear the same type of armor. They got the bird thing and pretty boys. It's just, I can't. But, his planet being Chemo's, the dirty mining planet. And Fulgrim was always obsessed with art and perfection, which then carried over to his boys, the Emperor's children, who always obsessed over perfection, even at their own detriment, that led to some pretty gnarly shit that we should get to one day. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I've read Fulgrim. I've read that book. That ending chapters is rough.
I honestly hadn't had a bone and read that at like 3 a.m. I was like, well, I'm not going to sleep now.
I was at work and I had to stand still and pause like mid-work. I'm like, oh my God, good Lord.
It was like, who switched my book? But we've got number 4, of course, Dirty Perturabo of the Iron Warriors. Ugh. Growing up pretty privileged on Olympia. And of course, siege warfare specialists. That's all they do. They love siege warfare. Perturabo is probably one of the worst Primarchs to serve under, because he's like, hey, if you don't get the job done, I'm going to have you shot. Like, honestly. Yeah.
I hate the man, but I respect the grind.
A literal grind.
Well said. Yeah.
It's like, sir, my last cannon is malfunctioning, but can it still shoot? Yeah. So keep using it. Oh, okay. I guess I'll die then. He doesn't even notice. But there is one Proto-Robo moment I want to come back to. Group Boy, you and I talked about it last night.
It's the coolest Proto-Robo moment. Like, it's the one you have to bring up.
It's the most mask-off, unhinged moment.
Yeah.
But number 5, we got the underrated, underappreciated, underrepresented Jagatai Khan.
My boy.
Of the Wise Scars. The coolest Primarch. I will admit that. He is the coolest. On his badass Mongolian Chagoris world. Known for his lightning warfare and just being an absolute vibe of a man. He is the capybara of Primarchs, honestly.
Yeah, I always love the Jagatai Khan stories. All this stuff is awesome.
The man who was able to destroy Mortarion 3 times, 2 in a fight and once with words.
What a king. Number 6, we got Leman Russ of the Space Wolves, raised on the terrifyingly badass world of Fenris, disgustingly terrifying death world, known for his savagery in battle and just being an all-around bro. Personally, I love Russ. I think a lot of people shit on him way too much. I think he's cool.
He's very cool.
I think he's awesome. I love the idea of just being like feral in some senses, all of your senses being like jacked up, like I mean, they're kind of like space Viking werewolf guys. It's just such a ridiculous concept, but it's so awesome when it's done right.
And
I usually compare him as go ahead.
I was just like, Leman Russ and some of his boys like hit one of my favorite character archetypes or like character tropes is the really smart guy who plays the dumbass, where very purposefully playing the barbarian brute because like everyone kind of lowers their expectations around him and doesn't expect as genuinely intelligent the man is, but he's just like having a good time drinking mead with his boys rather than like battle strategies, because that's some lame shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But then when the battle kicks off, he like just explodes. And you go, okay, well, I don't care if he sits around and drinks beer with the boys as long as he's fighting on my side.
Yeah. It's kind of like Jackie Chan in, what was it, The Drunken Master, where it's like, he pretends to be the fool, and then he just ruins your day.
Yeah. And then you try to I'll outsmart the Space Wolves and Leman Russ, and he's like, I've already anticipated this.
Yeah. I did it while drinking.
Yeah.
He is the Stone Cold Steve Austin of Primarchs. But number 7, we've got everyone's favorite literal brick wall of a person, Rogel Dorn of the Imperial Fist.
Yeah.
Growing up on the frozen world of Inuit, Dorn being the master of defensive warfare, but not too bad in the siege. I remember Bones 40K compared the Imperial Fist to being buttered toast, which is understandable, but buttered toast is still delicious.
And also better at sieging than the Iron Warriors. I have receipts.
Tragic. That is tragic. I can't believe you.
Yeah.
But you're probably right, though. You are right. I do love that in the Siege of Terra, it's like all Proto-Robo wanted to do was just break through the walls and prove that he's better than Dorn. Horus is like, oh yeah, by the way, we're using demons. And Proto-Robo was like, well, I hate that. I broke through the wall, proved my point. I'm out. Bye.
He just rage quits the Siege of Terra.
Stops carrying the heresy falls apart like a house of cards.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
But number 8, we've got the disgusting, horrifying, nightmare-inducing Night Haunter Conrad Kurz of the Night Lords. Yay, everyone's favorite psychopath.
Hey,
he's growing up on.
Yeah, he's crazy.
I hate him so much. I read his Primarch book. I hate him so much.
He is one of my favorites, like of all time, next to Dorn.
I love to hate him. I just love to hate him. He's so disgusting. But growing up on the disgusting, perpetually Gotham's world of Nostromo, known for his terror tactics and psychological warfare, especially, I assume it's pretty effective once you decide, oh yeah, by the way, instead of just conquering the planet, we're just going to kill one of their cities and dump all the bodies on the city. Why not?
Do you believe that he's dead?
You know what? I have a fun theory that his soul is still in the warp, and he's probably gonna. I would love to see like short stories of Kurz' soul haunting Imperial officers and whatnot when they're traveling through the warp, like some Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street type stuff.
I really hope he is dead, because I think the story of the Night Lords is almost cheapened if he comes back. Because and also just his arc, he's so determined of my death proves I'm right. So if he is just floating around the warp, which it might be, if he's hanging out with chaos, chaos entities don't die, they respawn. I almost feel like on principle he's not respawning, just because if he did, that means he's wrong, and that's
he proves himself wrong.
Yeah,
interesting. That is a very interesting character arc. I just assumed if you could kind of tell the future. You might be able to get away with, dodging death more than once, which he has done a dozen times, essentially. But it just seems like he let himself die.
He did.
See, I'm right. He just let himself die to prove himself right. It's okay, I can understand that, I guess. Vindication and all that. But speaking of seeing the future, number 9, everyone's favorite hawk boy, Sanguinius.
Yeah,
that audible. Sanguinius of the Blood Angels, the perfect boy, the literal Simon Belfont looking angel head ass vampire boy.
Yeah.
I love him and I don't love him at the same time. I love what he represents. I love him in a fight, but outside of a fight, when he's interacting with the other Primarchs, it's fun, but just him in general is I get it, he's perfect, but maybe he's a little too perfect.
I think he's significantly interesting when you actually look into who he is as a person, because this is something we talked about when we first just got in a call, hung out. Sanguinius is a character that from day dot was being hunted by the Chaos Gods. So his entire life has just kind of been a big demon man hanging over his shoulder, just you gonna slip up, bud? When are you gonna slip up? And that
blood looks juicy, don't it?
Yeah, oh yeah, you're the blood angels, I'm the blood god. Come on, just please. Angron's my second choice. Don't make me go with him.
And don't make me pick up scraps.
And also fighting beside Horus the whole time too, and Horus being hey, maybe there's other powers we could be getting into. I don't know, Sanguinius.
Horus.
Just trying to convince him the whole time, right? Or try to at least start the convincing, but of course he would never. He would never falter.
Yeah, I still heavily stand by my apparently controversial opinion that Sanguinius is just a boring Conrad Kurz.
He's the other end of the spectrum. It's funny enough, I actually like the Blood Angels more with Sanguinius being dead, because the fact that they know that they're basically doomed, but they keep pushing on anyway, I respect it. I'd have to respect it. It's either we're going to get the Red Thirst, or we're going to get the Black Rage. Either or, we're still going to do our job, and it's trialing through that adversity, I can't hate that. And also they're just really cool on tabletop. Those extra attacks, especially with the Death Company, yikes.
They are scary.
They are scary as hell. Hell, Mephiston is a scary psyker.
Oh God.
I heard his books are kind of fun. I haven't read them, but I've heard they're pretty cool.
He's very cool. He shook off the Black Rage twice. He's the only guy to recover from the Black Rage.
Oh, look at him, Mr. Badass over here.
That's pretty strong.
But then also, you ever notice that he's basically wearing the Dracula suit?
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's what? It's I get it. That's just Games Workshop. Subtlety is not their specialty.
No.
But I have one question about Sanguinius. Do you guys think he's permadead?
Another one, I hope, yes.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think he's dead, but I do believe his soul did split into the Sanguinar, Dante, Mephiston, and is it Astroth, I believe? Of the Black Company? Death Company? It makes sense because they each represent basically a portion of Sanguinius's, personality, like the Sanguinar being the literal angel and the aura, Dante being his resilience and fighting prowess, Mephiston being his psychic might, and then, you know, Astroth being his black rage and all that.
That's an interesting kind of point. That would be really cool if they brought more of that into the lore.
I hope so. I also could say maybe he's also just like Conrad Kurz, because he's always got to kind of chomp Conrad shit. Maybe he's also waiting in the warp, purposefully not coming back, just so whenever Dante sees the pearly gates, he can just come back down and push him back into his body. Like, no. You don't get to go. You don't get to ever go.
Man. But number 10, of course, Ferrus Manus of the Iron Hands. Now
he exists.
He existed. He had a good head on his shoulders.
A little bit, yeah.
I personally thought Ferrus Manus was kind of cool. I just think he was underwritten, which I think is the case for quite a few Primarchs. But, you know, coming from Medusa, being all about mastering technology and being resilient as iron, I do think Games Workshop treats him terribly and made him too one-dimensional. The only really two great moments he had was when he says, I want to get rid of these hands. These hands are not mine. They're strong hands, but not mine. And I don't want my sons to become a bunch of Robocops.
Interesting.
And of course, the other great moment where he just slaps Fulgrim with his hammer.
Yeah.
He's like, what if we betrayed Dad? He's like, what did you say?
What the fuck did you just say to me? Like,
it's like, say psych right now.
The coolest thing about Ferrus Manus, I can say, is it is so sick to have a character that's just like, yeah, I'm a blacksmith. I punch my stuff into shape because why would I use a hammer? My hands are metal. And also,
he's got like liquid metal hands or something like that.
Yeah, essentially.
I think it's Necron metal, Necrodermis.
Is that right?
Be. I haven't looked too much into him. Other than that, he just does have the short end of the stick, like sadly, of being fated to be the guy that dies first, and like right at the fucking beginning. Yeah. So like he's
all because
underdeveloped.
He didn't want to retreat.
Yeah, he's underdeveloped only in the aspect of like there's just not a big time frame for him to do things.
Yeah, like Crusade time is the only time he could have done anything. I heard his Primarch book is pretty good.
I've heard that too.
Guy Haley wrote it. I think so. But yeah, I heard that's good. It's just, you know, I wish he had more personality. Ironically, people say that the channel does more respect to him than Games Workshop does.
Well, the other thing, his death did mark like a pretty eventful part of the whole like story, right?
Yeah.
As Fulgrim was then like, okay, now I'm like fully in with the Dark Gods. Essentially, he'd kind of proven his point, and
yeah, the Lier braid took over his body, I think.
Right.
But then also, it's what they did after his death that was really disgusting. Was they put his head in a wine bottle and gave it to Horus. I was like, okay, the disrespect doesn't end in death.
No.
Oh, poor man. But number 11. Angron, the angry boy of the World Eaters, slave Spartacus of Nuceria. Known for his bloodlust, melee combat. Not his original intention, but Jesus, his backstory is just disgustingly sad.
Well, he started off in bloodshed. As soon as he was scattered,
killing Eldar.
Yeah, there was Eldar waiting, essentially, to be like, we foresee the future, and this guy's going to be a big problem. And so they were all waiting there to kill him, and they all got ripped to shreds.
The question is, who is to say about it more? That he's just a really strong baby, or the Eldar are just weak for getting killed by a baby?
Yeah, I wonder. I wonder, yeah.
If I had a nickel for every time the Eldar tried to fuck with the Primarch origin, I'd have 2 nickels. Like, y'all know about the fact that Jagatai Khan and Fulgrim had their Primarchs pods swapped, right? Or that's like a possibility of a theory.
I didn't know that.
Oh.
This one, apparently, there's a chance it's not canon, so don't quote me on this. Something I read, and it might be a game of telephone of someone saying this happened, but apparently there was some prophecy with Jagatai Khan getting some Eldar blade in the future. So Kegarak decided to just pull a little switcheroo on the 2 pods and like send them to like, you know, their respective planets rather than like where they would have, you know, originally been, where they could have where Jagatai Khan could have gone traitor. But uncertain how true that is. I need to look into it. I was refuted in a video I claimed that. So that one is a citation needed.
I feel like that's the case for so many of so much lore stuff. Like, I don't know if that, it's like, is it really true? Or is it just a game of telephone? It's like, it's so many that are like that. It's just like,
it's like the people that state the Baneblade used to be a light scout tank in the like Golden Age of Humanity. That is another game of telephone that comes from a book mentioning a completely different vehicle.
Yeah, because I can't imagine the Baneblade being used in what was considered a Star Trek-y future. It's like, it's such a retro tank. There's no way they were using that.
It's
they
like
use something that doesn't use treads.
Yeah, I remember like someone finding the quote, and then it was like, that's talking about the Land Raider and Archon Land for named it the Land Raider after him, not the fact it's a Land Raider.
Could you imagine if that was the scout vehicle? What would their like
ass box?
What would their heavy tanks look like if that was the scout vehicle?
Oh god.
Yeah, exactly.
Like something out of Transformers.
Yeah,
I mean, that does make the whole Ussachar Creed tactical genius thing true, with him sneaking in Bane blades wherever with his old rules.
Oh, I didn't know he could do that.
Oh yeah,
god.
back like in when he was introduced, he had the ability to deep strike any model in the Guard Codex. Which did count Bane blades, so there were a lot of old meme posts of like you're like sieging Terra, the Black Legion's going at, and you turn around, it's like, all right, empty street, you turn around again and a Bane blade's coming around a light post, like just hidden, because you by the rules as written you could deep strike a Bane blade. And it's not a thing anymore. It hasn't been a thing for like many editions, sadly. But it's where the Creed tactical genius, or just yelling Creed at like any tactical thing, it just sourced as a Warhammer meme. There's a excellent fanfic of Creed playing chess with Tzeentch, and it is very funny.
But back to Angron, what a disaster. What a disaster. Karn is awesome though, but besides that, yikes. Also, oof.
Yeah, he didn't even have a chance.
He had no chance.
No.
He had no chance, man. But now we move to number 13, everyone's favorite depressed blueberry, Roboute Guilliman. Now, I will say what everyone's thinking. Current era Guilliman, perfect, well written, amazing, badass even. Crusade era Guilliman, kind of a douche. Still kind of cool, but kind of an asshole.
It's just the Ultramarine problem of just like, yeah, they're kind of the jack of all trades, and are massive tryhards, and are very by the books, and it clashes with some characters and some stories where they're just like written to be more annoying because the other characters find them annoying.
But I like the fact that they are written that way, because then you kind of get such a variation in like the Space Wolves do this and the Ultramarines do that. They're just so opposite. Well, not exactly opposite, but they're very opposite in what they do, and it adds such like a different contrast. Yeah, to what they're like, kind of the way that you look at them. You kind of need these guys to set like a precedence, and then everyone else can kind of slot in where they are. I don't hate Guilliman. I think he's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's like he definitely had the most Superman of all the backstories for the Primarchs. Like literally landed on a great planet, raised by 2 loving parents, became a mini emperor. Just great guy.
Essentially, yeah.
I have a pet theory that I've yet to be proven wrong on, but so far I've had like 2 or 3 people that I've met that prove this. If somebody says that Gilliman is their favorite Primarch, they for sure have 1,000 hours in one of the many 4X games that exist. They are a Europa Universalis player. They play Stellaris, Hearts of Iron, one of those. And I have friends who adore Gilliman, and I bring up, like, how many hours do you have in these 4X games? They're like a few thousand. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. That's why you like the Empire Builder, because that's what you like to do.
He's really good at that. Everyone compares him like Julius Caesar, but I get more of this is just history stuff. Like people say Julius Caesar because of the Roman thing. I was like, probably more Caesar Augustus because he created that whole era of peace. It's like Gilliman basically did that with Ultramar. Just 500 planets where it's just, hey, he just made everything pretty awesome. I think it's funny how in the, I don't know if it's the Dornian Heresy or the Lionel Heresy fanfic where Gilliman branches off and he goes renegade, where he's like, hey, I don't want any part of this crap. Leave Ultramar alone. I think it's the Dornian Heresy, because that's the one where familiar. Conrad's a loyalist. Yeah,
it sounds familiar. I haven't gone super deep in it, but I have a general overview understanding of what that
There's
is.
There's cool moments in those fanfics, but it's like just the idea of Dorne turning traitor. It's like, I don't know, man.
I don't buy it.
I don't buy that, especially going to Chaos. I don't buy that. Lionel Johnson, still no, but I just don't see it, man. But number 14, the stinky boy, Mortarion of the Death Guard. The sourpuss, Mr. The Emperor stole my kill, and I'm eternally petty about it. Not a big fan of Mortarion, honestly. I'm not a big Death Guard guy. I don't know too much about the Death Guard, but like I understand why people like the Death Guard. I like Garrow. Nathaniel Garrow is awesome, but Typhus is just such a monster.
Oh my god, Typhus!
Disgusting.
I think Mortarion is or at least he would be in my head, a solid, like, yeah, he's pretty cool. I think he's nice and kind of fun, except for the fact that he's the bane of my existence on the tabletop. Because Death Guard in Mortarion hard counter my Custodes, and I'm forever bitter about it.
Oh,
it is so annoying.
All your stuff is damaged too, right?
Yeah, they turn every single custodian like ability and thing that makes them cool, their stratagems. The Death Guard just have so many counters to it. Like the core bread and butter stratagem for Custodes is Tanglefoot Grenade, which, like, oh yeah, you can reduce the movement or charge with like a D6, and Death Guard cannot have their movement changed at all.
Right.
And also the fact that you literally, like, by rules cannot get around the damage negation, like the -1 damage thing. There's no rule that supersedes it. It is so frustrating.
Man, my friend Duncan plays Death Guard and White Scars, but man, his Death Guard, they frustrate me because he doesn't even use Mortarion against me. He just brings in a bunch of Plague Bearers and Blightlord Terminators and like a Tallyman.
Oh.
It's just like, he brings in, I forget the character model that's a Blightlord Terminator with the giant scythe. It's not Typhus, but it is essentially a captain-ish of that faction, and I can't remember what they're called, but
Lord of Contagion?
Yes, that's it, Lord of Contagion.
I hate that model.
Yeah, I hate him so much because my captain, my Dark Angels Deathwing captain with the burning blade, just going against him and then just like doing all this damage, and then he just rolls like, oh yeah, I saved a bunch of this and regained wounds. By the way, there's a bunch of Plague Bearers coming your way. Yeah. Literally, the only model that survived was my Vindicare assassin, because I put him up on a giant tower that they couldn't get up to, so I just kept taking pot shots at all the models.
Funny enough, the Death Guard are a pain to me as well, because I usually play my Space Marines as White Scars, and their like super doctrine rule is +1 damage in the assault phase, in which it is completely negated army-wide as soon as you get there. So as soon as you're like, yeah, let's get to the assault phase and get in there and start dealing 2 damage to them, it's like, nope, your bonus is completely negated. So at least we're all feeling the pain for fighting these guys.
Yeah, it sucks so hard. It is. I have never won a game into Death Guard, regardless of like skill level of the player. I've never won. I've fought absolute beginners, and just interacting with their rules has ruined me too much.
Oh man, the nightmares. But we now move on to Magnus did nothing wrong with the red.
My boy.
Of the Thousand Suns, raised on what is essentially Space Egypt. The unparalleled Psyker, the giant, just copper, just man, what a guy. What an absolute wholesome guy who did nothing wrong, and
literally
everyone loves him.
He did nothing wrong, wasn't his fault. There are so many steps that could have been taken to make sure that he was aware of the powers that be. I am forever a Magnus apologist.
Yeah, the Emperor was a bit of a hypocrite in that area. It's like, oh yeah, the Council of Nicaea. No more psychics. It's like, yes, but Emperor, you are a psychic. Malkador is a psychic. Are you guys gonna stop using psychic stuff? This isn't about us. We're above that. Like, we get to do whatever we want. Shut up, Magnus.
Now, son, stop with all that psychic business. Anyways, I'm gonna go back to building you a psychic amplifier chair.
You're sending mixed messages here, Biggie.
I just love the way Magnus, like, looks. All of his images of him being, like, gigantic red with, like, one eye, it's such a standout uniqueness to, like, the typical kind of look of most of the Primarchs, just being like completely red, usually with those like the front horn armor looks like two like elephant tusks coming out.
Yeah, it's like horn nipple armor.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's
horny, if you will.
Yeah,
God,
his like nipple horns are crazy.
I
but also Thousand Suns.
Yeah, Thousand Suns are for me easily second favorite like Chaos Legion. I used to play Thousand Suns. I sold my army because I am too dumb to play Thousand Suns. There are too many moving parts and like psychic stuff where I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, man. I just kind of smite and hope things work. But like Thousand Suns visually, I think, are one of the coolest like Space Marines out there. I also am a firm Tzeentch fan. Tzeentch is my favorite Chaos God, so all the stuff that leans into that, my shit.
I just love the contrast between each of the 4 gods and their Chaos Legions. It's like Thousand Suns look the cleanest, but yeah, because that blue and that gold just looks so good.
It's such a good combo. Yeah.
And their Terminators are so awesome.
They're so cool. Oh, yeah. And also, like, you know, shout out to Magnus. Shouts out to being the only Chaos Primarch that has a good relationship with his kids still. Because, like, if you read any of the stories from a Thousand Sun perspective, it's very clear they have a lot of love and respect for Magnus. And also, like, because you see that in, if any of y'all have actually read the Rylanor short story rather than just the song or the memes on it, the whole thing with, like, the Thousand Suns are the POV characters, and in that moment, like, one of the main reasons they betray Fulgrim at the end and actually like let Rylanor blow up the nuke in their faces is because
they realize they're the baddies.
Yeah, they are so disgusted by the fact that Fulgrim would do this to one of his sons. And they're like, Magnus would never, is this what Fulgrim is? This is awful. Rylanor's right. And like has that moment because they're just so taken aback at like how he's just treating an emperor's children like one of his own.
Especially Rylanor.
At what point do they start to get that like all is dust sort of form? I can't really recall what that turning point where they kind of just gave themselves. I
feel like that was after the burning of Prosper. No, I know during the Crusade they had that issue. They used psychic stuff more than bolt guns and plasma guns and whatnot, and that was messing with them because in the in the Jagatai Khan Primarch book when they're fighting with the Thousand Suns against the orcs, and the Thousand Suns dipped because they started mutating and turning to ash, and it's like, okay. But I think it's when Russ burnt down Prospero, and they went to the planet of the sorcerers, and he made that deal with Zeech. Then that's when they really got shit on it.
It was because when they were in the planet of the sorcerers, it was, I think, either right before the Siege of Terra or after. It's one of those. It's very close to that point, because that timeline is just kind of weird to follow. And even as a fan of A Thousand Suns, it's a little wonky if you're not like directly reading the Horus Heresy books in order. Because Ahriman did it completely on his own, of just like, I can fix this problem, I can fix this, and then casted a spell so powerful he lost control of it. And Full Metal Alchemist his entire legion.
Right. Okay.
Technically,
then, cured
Magnus
them, though.
was the one. Yeah, he did technically cure them, and Magnus was the one who actually shut it off, because Magnus actually bore the full front of that spell and had to power through the most immense pain he ever felt, ever, to turn off the spell and then go scream at Ahriman and almost kill him on the spot. But Zeech is like, nah, that was the coolest thing ever. Magnus, you cannot touch him.
Yeah, that was a lot of change.
It's crazy how the Chaos Gods. Was that oh my god, was that fun?
I also love that Ahriman's entire goal is to supplant Zeech as the new Lord of Change, and Zeech is like, my fucking boy, that's why you're my champion. And then Ahriman's like, don't touch me.
It's so hilarious how all 4 Chaos Gods just chose the first captains over the Primarchs as their favorites.
Yeah, I mean, they're perfect for him. Like, Karn has his own personal skull pile, and like Khorne's so proud of him. Like, Lucius is such a fucking disgusting person.
I hate him. I hate him on a core level. He's such a terrible character. I hate that he exists. I can't stand him. I can't.
I haven't read any books with him. I just love his power. I love how horrifying just dealing with Lucius as a person is. Because, like, you kill him and you get any slight form of pleasure at the act, he's going to painfully supplant you. And that is, like, very cool. But I know very little about his core character outside of him before all of that happened.
It's crazy because the one person that could probably permakill Lucius would have been Sol Tarvitz, because he would have felt no pride from it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I killed him. I don't feel pride from it. I feel bad about it. It's like, oh, stay that way. Don't ever change your mind on that.
Tarvitz, the best of all of us.
Here's the question, though. It's like, imagine if Lucius gets killed by a dreadnought, right? Does he become a dreadnought? Does he become a hell brute? Or like,
that
how
would
does that work?
That would be such a cool arc to like re-release a new model.
Oh,
just have him be like, oh, he was killed by a Space Marine Redemptor dreadnought, and then be like, well, they actually enjoyed that, so here's Lucius the Eternal, the Redemptor dreadnought. It's so rad.
That would I think there's 2 camps that can go down. Like that, like he turns into a horrific, like maybe even like flesh like coated dreadnought. Sounds horrifying, because he literally appears from underneath your skin and like grows out of you when he supplants you. And like, imagine doing that to a mech. That's terrifying. And then
it's like Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Or there's the other also horrifying camp of, imagine you're fighting with like your dreadnought buddy, and then the coffin door kicks open and this weird Emperor's Children grows out of the flesh mound inside of it, and both are awful, and I really like that idea.
Or imagine if Abaddon killed him with Dracnian, and then Lucius's soul just goes into Dracnian. It's like, well, it never affects Abaddon because it's in the sword.
Yeah, it's just like Lucius becomes a sword.
He becomes the new Liara Blade.
Yeah.
Just bothering Abaddon all the time.
Now
that's a sitcom I'd watch.
Yeah, just being an Emperor's Children in Abaddon's brain as he's just, shut up, please shut up, Lucius, I hate you.
Do the coke.
I have to keep you around because the sword's so good, but please be quiet.
Yeah.
Come on, Abaddon, just one sniff. just one bump. One bump, that's all you need. But speaking of bald assholes like Abaddon, we move on to the arch traitor, the Horus the Himbo Lupercal of the Luna Wolves, or Sons of Horus they became. Raised on Chthonium, doesn't have his own Primarch book because why would he?
There's enough about
I'll
him.
there's enough about him.
Yeah.
Known for his charisma, being versatile, his spearhead attacks, which are actually a pretty good strategy. It's like, oh yeah, if you cut the head off the snake, the body withers. It's like, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That happens to orcs all the time. It's like you kill the biggest orc. Now they just fight each other to see who's the next boss.
And also just one of, I think, the biggest bros until he wasn't. I love his interactions with the other Primarchs. Like, his actual brotherly, jibes with Sanguinius are the best Sanguinius has ever been. Also, the fact that he's more than willing to admit the strengths of the other Primarchs around him and actually, award them the things and the praise they deserve. Like, telling Dorn, brother, if we had to fight each other, that'd be a war that goes on for millennia. Best at defense versus the best at offense. I don't know who would win.
He's like the Rock before Black Adam came out.
Yeah.
He's literally the Rock. It's like, yeah, he's such a lovable dude. And then you find out, then he goes down that path and it's like, I care. He went, full, I'm going to supplant myself as the big guy. Okay. I see it here. But Horus and Horus Rising was so well written. And I really, especially rereading it, I pay attention more, which I feel like is the case for a lot of Horus Heresy books. You hear them the first time, you miss a lot of stuff, and then you go back and you see things through a new lens. And for him, I totally get it now why he snapped and turned, because the Emperor just left him. It's like, well, wouldn't he be like, I still trust my dad, but it's like, no, it's not just that. It's that the fact that everything he tries to do goes wrong and he can't turn to the Emperor for advice. He can't, he's got the Mournival, he's got Loken, he's got Torgaten, the best bro, Abaddon, Little Horse, Malagers, but then there's Erebus slithering in there. Fucking Erebus, but it's like he doesn't have, a father to turn to. And then on top of that, Malcador's like, oh yeah, by the way, we've got a new council on Terra made up of nothing but bureaucratic humans, no more Primarchs, none of that. So they're technically your bosses. So it's like, I'd be pretty pissed off too.
Yeah.
I completely understand him being pissed, because it's like, wow, we did all this heavy lifting, we died, we bled, we fought to secure the galaxy, and now these bureaucrats who've never even lifted a power sword are going to tell me what to do and tell my men what to do. And I understand that kind of rift, that growing rift between Astartes and humans, where it's like, yeah, I get why the Sons of Horus, a lot of them are like, yeah, we're still better than you guys because we're really in the shit and you guys aren't. I don't agree with it, but at the same time, I understand that that growing mindset of Space Marines are basically a fraternity. It's like, if you aren't in, you aren't in. You don't get it. You don't understand the brotherhood or our ways, our culture, our way of fighting, the sacrifices we make. You guys just come in after we've bled and we've died, and you build monuments on top of our corpses.
Do you think that has anything to do with him growing up on a sort of a gangster planet?
Gang world, yeah.
Yeah, where he's like, if you got to be part of the gang. If you're not part of the gang, then you're nothing.
Yeah, you got to fight to survive, whether you die. That's it.
Yeah.
It's like, he's not made. I get it, because Horus is just a warrior. He's a barbarian. He's Conan. It's like, he lives to fight. He loves to fight. He's not made for administrative purposes like Gilliman is. He's not a politician. He's not a statesman. He makes great speeches. He's charismatic, but he's not made for a post-war Imperium.
No.
And I think that was his fear, is like, what's going to happen to us? Because are we going to end up like the Thunder Warriors, where they just kill us off when we don't serve a purpose anymore? It's like, we'll never know now. We know Gilliman had plans to, turn the Ultramarines into politicians and, guard and police and whatnot. And Gilliman just wanted to retire to a farm like Thanos. It's like, yeah, he had dreams, but it's like, you're never getting them. It's tragic.
I guess that goes with the title of War Master, right? As soon as the war's over, then what do you do?
Yeah,
what do you do? You're just a puppet.
I love how that was a major theme of Horus Rising, of that discussion kept coming up of what happens when we're done? Will this ever be done? And what happens when it is?
Like the conversation between Loken and Sigismund.
Yeah. That conversation was so good.
yeah, Sigismund that badass. It's like, yeah, the war never ends. We're always going to be fighting. It's like, he's right, because it's like, unless you kill off all the Eldar, which you can't unless you get into the webway, which Emperor, I mean, but then there's also orcs. It's like, how do you just kill off all the orcs? You can push them back, but orcs are like grass. It's like, you cut the grass still comes back. Like, it's just a no-win situation, but we'll never know because freaking Erebus ruined everything. Oh, fucking Erebus. Speaking of Erebus, number 17. Oh, no. Yeah, number 17, Lorgar, Aurelian of the Wordbearers, from the world of Colchis, with his first chaplain, Erebus, who we could all agree is just the worst character. We all hate Erebus.
I hate every Wordbearers character, but like in the way of I am so delighted when they appear in a story, but they suck so bad. Cor Farron is such an asshole. Like, he sucks so bad. So does Lorgar. And like, but they're so fun of villains to pop up because they're so conniving and like evil.
They're just like classic evil. They're just good old fashioned, just Dark Souls evil.
Yeah, Erebus is also just so like schemy, even though none of them ever pan out or work. And like, I think 3 times got his ass beat because of how because of the outcome of his actions.
He's just such a cartoony villain. It's like, I may get my ass beat today, but I will never change. Did I learn my lesson? No, never.
Yeah, I'll do it again.
But then it's like, what exactly? The thing about each Space Marine Legion, they each specialize in something. Siege warfare for Iron Warriors, defensive for Imperial Fists. Space Wolves are basically just a bunch of Wolverines. And it's like, what about the Word Bearers? What's their special thing? They're just great at worshiping the Emperor. But it's like, do they have a really good, a very good specialization of what they do? I could never find one. I couldn't find anything. Like, they're just there.
They did actually, and I know this. I learned this recently. One of the main things the Word Bearers do, which is kind of a weird thing, one of their primary jobs was to destroy harmful planetary cultures and religions. So they'd be the ones to lead book burnings and like torch relics of the planet that they'd be the ones to break the statues to the old gods of a planet. That was their gig. They have, if you actually look at their models for the Horus Heresy tabletop game, there are like 2 or 3 units that play into that. They've like a flamer squad that is primarily was made to burn books with their flamers, like full Fahrenheit 451. Like, that was their vibe, and then they took that to, we're supplanting your old shit with our cool new thing, with our god is the Emperor.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Because them not having really a standout gift, but when you put it that way, like, their standout gift is their undoubtable faith in the Emperor, which is kind of an interesting power in its own.
That's why I always like the rivalry between Word Bearers and Ultramarines more than Fists and Iron Warriors, because Fists and Iron Warriors is like, oh, we're the same but we're different. And it's like, okay, that's fun and all, but it's like I remember someone made the meme where it's the Chad Ultramarine Word Bearer rivalry versus the Virgin Dorn Perturabo rivalry. It's like Gilliman and Lorgar, it's a battle of morality. It's a battle of who they are at their core. It's like Gilliman's the statesman. He's very loyal. He's very pro-Imperium, pro-Empire, while Lorgar is more about the faith. And, it's very interesting because the whole book burning and destroying cultures and whatnot, it's like, yeah, that's definitely not great of the Emperor to want that. But I get it, because it's like, oh yeah, how are you going to build the Imperium when people are loyal to other stuff? It's like, yeah, but at the same time, you're destroying other cultures because you think you know best. And we talked about this, Glue. Emperor's problem is his damn hubris. He thinks he knows what's best forever and always. Like, dude, you were clearly wrong. And maybe you are right about some stuff, but the way you go about it is so terrible, like burning down Monarchia.
Yeah, kind of a misstep. And I also, yeah, I completely agree. Even as a giant Imperial Fist fanboy, yeah, no, the Ultramarine and Word Bearer rivalry is way cooler and way more fun.
Oh yeah, Battle of Calth, man.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to that part.
Man, it's gonna be so fun. I have to read it, but yeah, I kind of felt bad for Lorgar because it's like, yeah, it's like he's like, this is what I was made to do, but you're punishing me. Instead of just sitting him down and saying, look, son, I get you think I'm a god, and maybe I should, take a step back and think, why does he see me that way? And it's like, now if you take a good look in the mirror, if you can, would you really be surprised if people thought you were a deity? Like, honestly?
Man,
well, Lorgar was always searching for something to believe in, right? The most powerful thing to believe in, and that's when the Chaos Gods kind of got him. That
void.
Yeah, they filled that void. Yeah. When he had a doubt, when he had his first doubt in the Emperor, they were like, there's other powers you could believe in that are potentially more powerful, and that's sort of what that initial crack in the glass that led to the fall.
Gods that actually want your worship.
Yes.
And also, it does make it worse with the fact that, this is something I think in the Master of Mankind book, which I need to read. Apparently, this is also made worse by psychically, the Emperor has this kind of thing going at all times where when you look at the Emperor, you see what you want to see from the Emperor. Yeah. So that would make it so much worse for Lorgar.
And there is that whole thing about his true form, like Corvus Corax saw his true form, and the Sisters of Silence could see his actual form. It's just it's this regular sized human dude, this old man who just is just tired.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe that's him, or maybe that's how you see him, even though you are blanks, pariahs. Maybe that's still how you see him, because we'll never know. Maybe the Emperor is just a guy who's so psychically powerful. Your mind tries to rationalize his existence and how you would view it, kind of like a Lovecraftian kind of thing.
That's such a cool idea, though, that he just has an aura that emanates what you want. It's such easy. It makes it a lot easier to believe in if you look at him and go, "You're exactly what I thought God would look like."
Yeah.
In action, you're exactly what I thought God would look like. You're so beautiful. He's just the most beautiful man ever. It's Fabio.
Why are all these people thinking I'm a god? Is it because they just, it's the way I look, is the way I act? No, it's their fault. It's the kids that are wrong.
The Emperor's not a god, Lorgar. Oh yeah, watch this. Just grabs a random civilian. Hey, look at the Emperor real quick. Their eyes literally just melt out of their skull. It's like, I see your point. It's like, yeah, because I'm freaking right. It's like, that's true. But there's one thing I highlighted from not Jack Chacon, but Lionel Johnson's Primarch book that talks about the way the Emperor looks. To the Lion, the Emperor appeared as a hooded figure armored in emerald plate, inscrutable with gilt and filigree, and shrouded in robes of gold, wreathed in obscuring light. Everything his brothers described was a mask. Only the Lion beheld the truth. Evidence that definitely he's just going to change form no matter who looks at him.
Well, that's what the Lion would want.
The Lion's ego.
That's what the Lion would want to see, right?
Yep.
That's what he wears into battle, the green armor and hoods and cloaks and stuff.
Yeah.
So he's like,
maybe he'd just be a giant man.
Yeah. You'd be like a giant, perfect human. And he's like, no, but I'm right. Which is part of the Lion's problem.
Yeah, God, he's definitely his daddy's son in that way.
I mean, that's part of all of the Primarchs' problem is they go, I'm the only one who's right, and that leads to a whole storm.
Yeah, but we move now, speaking of flamers, to number 18, Vulcan of the Salamanders. Everyone's favorite puppy boy. Everyone's favorite hugging pal.
So great.
The purest boy, the sweetest guy, my first favorite Primarch. I remember when I started reading and I just bought his Primarch book. Never finished it, which I'm ashamed to say, but it's really good though. I do recommend it just because it's an easy read. and I really should get back to finishing it. But he's so likable. It's hard to hate him, except for when he burnt that child. But besides that,
He had stuff going on at the time, you know. It was a bit rough for him.
he had a breakdown. It was just a moment. It was a lapse of judgment. It's like, okay, I'm back. Whoops, I made a whoopsie. But Vulcan's awesome, you know. Got the whole flamer thing going on. Mastercrafted weaponry, lovable guy, huge guy. Nocturne being, oh yeah, everyone's technically black, but not really. But also, yes, I don't know. It's
It's a thing, big old can of worms.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a big old can of worms I see in a lot of Facebook Warhammer groups.
Yeah.
It's something I was like, I don't know. Point is, I like him. That's all. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Number 19, Corvus Corax.
My boy, one of many.
Definitely needs more books. He needs more books.
I love Corvus so much. He's so cool.
He really is. But like, you know, stealth, hit and run, ambush tactics, love him, guerrilla fighting. Raven Guard need more books. They need more focus. They just deserve more. Really do.
I've started up a Raven Guard army, and yeah, everything about Corvus is so cool. I mean, his biggest weakness is that he's one of the few Primarchs to actually have empathy. Like, that is so rough for him, of having to deal with just like actually have to be impacted by the horrors of war. And like, yeah, there are so many little fun facts I could just like go in on. Like, my favorite little one that I'll actually give, there's a lot of memes about, you know, oh yeah, Corax is like, you know, the edgy poet. Canonically, Corax hates poetry. He thinks it's dumb and too similar to the slave songs on his old planet.
Interesting.
Yeah, because in his Primarch book, he went to Macragge to visit Gilliman, went into his chambers, and was like, oh, this is gaudy.
Yeah.
Like all this gold and all this jewelry and all this, like, ugh.
And
it's much.
And also just like, yeah, and also terrorizing Lorgar, like that whole like part of whatever book that was in of Corvus, the shadow blade murder bird like creature, not a demon but just something else, like fully melted into his like Primarch powers, just chasing after Lorgar, like just cutting through Space Marines in the way, and then just like shuts the door on his personal sanctum. Corvus just slamming into the door like, I have your scent, I've tasted your blood, you cannot hide from me. And then Lorgar just being like, yeah, I'm just gonna take another century or so and just meditate. That's all I'm doing here. I promise. I just needed to do some more meditating. No other reason.
I'm not running.
No, I'm not running at all.
Yeah,
I'm not running. I'm praying. There's a difference.
How did he end up dying? I forget now.
He's not dead.
Nah, he's currently dead in the warp hunting the Chaos Primarchs, which primarily the first one he found was Lorgar, and wounded him and is terrifying the shit out of Lorgar.
Yeah, he mutated like fucking crazy. Like,
yeah, there's a big thing too that I stumbled into when reading about Sanguinius, that apparently every Primarch just has this like cap they can reach where they just become like actual like angels of death. Like Sanguinius during the siege, 100% the angel of death, like that is what a Primarch can truly become, and Corvus has done that in the warp. He's not demonified, because Lorgar said that is not a demon out there. That is my brother. And Corax is just an amorphous shadow cloud of birds and knives, and it's horrifying. And I love him, and I hope he gets a model because I want to see that.
And just one lightning model.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just
like give him a model where he can like switch between his mutant mode and his normal form. Like a model where it's like one side is just his regular, you know, form we know him as, but then the other side is just a crazy bird knife cloud.
Yeah, make it like once you kill him in one form, he turns into the other form, and you have to kill him in that form.
That'd be so sick. I love the Raven Guard specifically. I really like the part of their tactics that I don't see a lot of. People kind of lean onto the stealth sniper line a lot more, when like they also are just like jump pack like lightning claw just jump at you from nowhere, then disappear after they like just destroyed your backline. Because like that's the army I'm making. Is I'm leaning into the vibe of like, hey, why are the trees talking? And then just like they come out and like attack you.
Did you whisper something? It's like, no.
It'd be interesting because we know that Lehman Russ is lost to the warp as well. I wonder if there would be like if Corvus and Lehman Russ would ever emerge eventually and be like, hey, Lehman was like, I couldn't find Magnus the Red in there, so I went searching and I found Corvus. And now we're out. We're back in the 40th millennium.
Someone else is there too that they gotta look for. Freaking Constantine Valdor.
Yeah, God. I almost kind of think that'd be like so funny, that interaction of like if they found each other, like they're both hunting the same Primarch, they like turn a corner and just like looking at each other like, this is awkward.
The Spider-Man meme where they're both pointing at each other.
It's because like this Lehman Russ has shed his armor in like the warp or something, so there's just a shadow bird man pointing towards like a naked Viking wolf man, and they're just like looking at each other like, this is a bit weird.
It's like, man, this new art for the Power Wolf album is weird.
Yeah.
And then there's Valdor who just shows up and he's like, oh damn, you guys are here too.
Just it's a really weird like crossover story where they're just all like, what are we all going after the same guy? And then that whatever character that is looking down from their tower at this meeting, like, oh god, oh no.
And it's like, man, it's like, what if we all just went and just triple threat every prime? Just kill them,
unstoppable.
Like, oh Jesus. It's like, what if we just killed Vashtor? It's like, yes, please, because he's such a letdown.
A tad. I liked at least that they let Be'lakor kind of clown him a little bit in that one Arc Element book.
Learn your place, loser.
I love Be'lakor so much. I never use him, but I have a Be'lakor on my shelf I'm very happy with.
I've used him quite a bit. He's really fun.
He's so scary.
Yeah, he opens up such a unique, like him on his own on the tabletop is like, he's a force to be reckoned with, but it's the abilities, the psychic powers that he has. That's what like really opens up that codex I found, with the ability to teleport units around. Just gave you so much tactical flexibility in the game. But,
that's so handy.
Yeah, especially when flamers were really broken for a while, and your opponent would be like, oh, I finally got the flamers in combat, and he's just like, psychic power, teleport them out of combat, and then they flame that unit. It was cheeky. It's really bad stuff.
That's fun.
Honestly, it wasn't healthy for the game. It was like actually bad.
The most I've used Be'lakor is in Total War Warhammer 3, where also similarly his psychic powers are terrifying. Yeah. The shadow tree in that game is fantastic.
And I remember, I was thinking about Valdor for a second. I forget which book it was. It's one of the Dawn of Fire books. I think it's the Iron Throne, where they do reference that Valdor is in fact like, I think someone found him or found someone who works for him. Apparently, he's going by the Yellow King.
Yeah, the King in Yellow is...
and no one's talking about this.
No.
Like, what the heck is going on with Valdor?
I apparently it has that comes up in the Eisenhorn books, like somewhere. Because like Gregor Eisenhorn's involved. Like, it's a whole thing. I remember it was like so speculated. And then I just went into like my Warhammer store, like local store just one day, just like walking around, and it's like, oh, hey, yeah, the King in Yellow. That's Constantine Valdor. It's like, what? We have an answer? It's like, yeah. Anything else? Like, nah, not really.
He's like, where's the new book? Well, we need to find out what he's been doing, because it's like, I forget why he left. I think it's to resurrect the Emperor, but that's why Russ left too. So it's like, have they not bumped into each other? It's like, oh, we're doing the same thing, but also let's just go bully Mortarion while he's locked in Nurgle's basement.
Good. And also
burn down Nurgle's garden.
If it just lets me have another named Custodi character, I'll take it. Because like the two we have so far, pretty cool, but I'll take Valdor because that man rules.
Oh my god, can't beat him. Just the best. But the last Primarch, speaking of custodies, the one who embarrassed them in the blood games.
Not true.
Of course. Oh, is that true?
No, they let him win. They let him do that.
Oh, they let him win?
Yeah.
Okay. See, I haven't read that Primarch book for Alfarius, but
It's not a cope, I promise. I bet they were just like letting him do it, just placating him, you know? No other
I
reason.
heard the book open saying my name is Alfarius and this book is a lie or something.
It
or
does.
the story is a lie.
It opens and then it closes with my name is Omegon, this is a lie.
Freaking Alfarius, Jesus. Or Omega. Who knows? I can't. I feel like GW just ran with that meme and just said, this is too funny for us not to milk it. But Alfarius and Omegon, or Alfarius Omegon, I don't know. The CIA of Primarchs, the manlet, the little monster, little gremlin. But I don't really know if there are two of them or if there is one of them, because it's like this is so much contradiction on purpose. It's just funny.
Yeah, it's almost like he might have like two personalities or something.
I know.
Yeah.
I know the Eldar say that specifically the Cabal in the Legion book state that he is two souls. No, he's one soul split in two bodies.
Right.
Which
yeah,
also
like
makes him. Yeah, he's also like the weakest Primarch, because if you 1v1 Alfarius, you're probably going to win. If you 1v2, that's a full Primarch strength. It's like when they're both together.
And they probably got that special twin link where they're just two are attacking, but they're attacking as one.
Exactly. I actually really like Alfarius, especially after reading Legion. Specifically,
such a good book.
It's so good. I really like how Alfarius in particular is like, when it's actually him, he is so calm and just like quiet. Of like, there are so many points in that book where he is being shit talked by like just a regular guy, and he's just kind of quietly putting up with it because he already like has planned when he's going to double cross them, and he's like, I'll just wait for that moment. Like and then like Omegon makes up for like the more aggressive side, because Omegon has I think Omegon's the one who has the moment in the book of like, oh shit, you heard me sneak up on you, and like, oh, you actually stabbed your blade into my chest piece. That's really impressive. You do that again, I break your neck. Like, you get one.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Everybody gets one.
Yeah.
But I do want to ask you guys, out of all the Primarchs, which one's your favorite and which one do you hate the most?
My favorite is Russ.
Russ.
Yeah.
Classic choice.
That's mostly because I'm just a Space Wolf fanboy. That was my first army when I started this game, when I was like, I think about 9, maybe 10 years old. So I gotta go with my boy Russ. And the one I hate the most, I don't know. This one's kind of hard to choose. The one to hate the most. I almost hate Angron the most, but not because, just because he was just so lost. He could have been so good, and I mean, it's easy to hate. He's Angron. But yeah, I just feel like he could have been so much, and he was just spoiled over and over and over by his crappy little planet. And now he's just like mindless, essentially. Whereas all the other Primarchs still kind of have a bit of it together. He's just completely mad with rage.
Yeah. He's got the worst.
Yeah.
This is a tough one, dude. Because like, I have two Primarchs that I hold in like equal standing in my head. One of which, for like, yeah, the same reason, Ian, like the because my one true is Rogaldorn. He is my favorite that I like entered into 40k, because I got into Warhammer with just started seeing it about like run around, like just like, oh, what is this Warhammer 40k thing? And then I watched If the Unbred Text Speech Device, which like fully was like, I should just actually get involved in this, because my favorite character in that series was Rogaldorn. I thought how they handle him is hysterical in that series. And so then like he was my first entry point into learning about like 40k. So from that aspect, he's great. And also, like, him and his boys, until the Leagues of Votann became a thing, were the closest I had to sci-fi dwarves in 40k, because, like, their personality is just dwarves. Hyper-industrious, like, quick to anger, grudge-filled, like, because they fucking hold a grudge, as stoic as they are.
Oh, yeah.
And like on the other end, when I'm actually like knowing about the characters and like reading the books, understanding who they are deeper as people, my favorite is Conrad Kurz, because Conrad is so interesting in that he's like so adjacent to being right. He's so close to being right, and then he's just like, he takes that next step to like, and then we skin them, and it's like, no, dude, no, you took it one step too far. And the fact that I also am a massive fan of stories that revolve around following a piece of shit, having to justify how much of a piece of shit they are. It's great. And the fact that his entire character arc is like justifying his actions to such a point where dying is him winning. Because like, I need to just die because that'll prove me right. And then like the moments where Conrad actually shows genuine fear in a moment are the few moments where a character has like given him the opportunity to be redeemed. Because like Sanguinius put the fear of God in him when he's like, I'm gonna put you into stasis, not to just hide you from here, but because I'm gonna find you later and bring you to Dad so he can forgive you. And then that's the moment where he's terrified, and that's great. I love that so much. And then most hated, this is a toughie, because I'm like, I have like my 3 that I don't really like for many reasons, but there's the one that holds true in my head, and that's Perturabo. Mainly, I despise his personality only based on the thing of I have met and like have been around people like him. The people who their main method of talking to you is passive aggression. They're always just upset at something but won't fucking tell you. They don't know how to just properly communicate their emotions. Like, I have had to deal with people like Perturabo in my life, and they are so annoying to deal with, and they just are a drain to be around socially, where you're just like, you are exhausting to just exist nearby.
You know what? Can I change mine to Perturabo? I want to change mine to Perturabo. now that you kind of mentioned that, I had like these visions of people that I know in real life, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think Perturabo takes a bit of a extra slice of the cake.
It's that aspect of like, because other than that, like objectively, like the Iron Warriors are very cool. His tactics are great. He hard carried the heresy. There's the fantastic moment of when he humbles Fulgrim by slamming his face into a Titan model, and like gives him the rundown of just like, listen here, I've done your way, and you fucked up every single step. You're following my orders now. And like all of that, and you're just like, damn, that's so cool, but you suck so bad.
Yeah, I understand, because it's like, he's definitely the guy. It's like, if you are stressing so much, if you feel so upset, say something.
Yeah.
Like, don't just bury it and seethe and then blame everyone else. It's like, dude, when you mess up, like when he, when he went back to Olympia. Oh no, before he went back to Olympia, when he found out that Olympia revolted, this was the most unhinged Perturabo moment, right?
Yeah. So,
Glue Boy, you and I talked about it last night, but that Perturabo Primarch book where he finally is done with the Herud. Dantioch's an old man. He kicks out Dantioch because he lost a few planets, and it's like, oh, you suck now, get out of my sight. So Perturabo's like, why don't I have more ships? Why did Olympia send me one ship? And I think it was the master of the fleet who came to Perturabo and said, sire, so Olympia only sent you one ship because now I'm just the messenger here. But they only sent one ship because they're rebelling against you. And Perturabo went from 0 to 10,000 and grabbed the master of the fleet and snapped him in half over his knee while frothing out of the mouth like a gorilla.
Yeah.
And it was such a whiplash moment where it was just Perturabo was already agitated. Then he just grabbed the dude, screams, breaks him like a glow stick, throws his body around, and then looks around at everyone else, and everyone looks away from him like they're scared. And it's just like, it's the most unhinged moment. And I'm like, dude, what? Like, what the heck's your problem?
That's his entire MO. It's just kind of like being upset perpetually, and then there's that one trigger moment where he just blows up and then always regrets it. He's always like, I shouldn't have done that. Like,
yeah, it's like hindsight.
Yeah.
It's like, you unhinged psychopath. And then when he killed Caliphany, it's just like when he just broke her neck, and after he's like, oh God, what did I do? It's like, you murdered a 90-year-old woman.
Yeah, like, it's all these little bits where I'm like, say for example, I'm just like, I need to hire some like contractor to do something. Like, oh yeah, maybe I'm an architect. I need to hire someone to build this like cool building. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna hire Perturabo, but I'm gonna like set up somebody else to be the main liaison between them, so I don't have to speak to him, because I know I'll just hate life just seeing him around.
Well, Voxcaster Horus, what is your top choice and your most hated?
So I think about this a lot, but originally it was Vulcan, just because of text-to-speech. When COVID started, that's when the COVID happened in 2020, it was like around March. That's when I really got into Warhammer, specifically text-to-speech. And of course, Bricky's video popped off. I feel like that's almost everyone's introduction to Warhammer nowadays is Bricky. But text-to-speech, I just loved Vulcan. It's like, he's so lovable and funny, and I bought his book, was reading that was fun, learning the lore about him. He's pretty cool, but I am upset that all of the Salamander books are basically written by Nick Kime and no one else.
Yeah,
it's kind of frustrating.
I've heard he's very protective about writing the Salamanders.
He is, but it's like, I kind of want someone else to do it, just because sometimes he writes them really cool, like the Salamander's Omnibus, where they're helping the guard out with like what they think is a ghost. And it's like, it's really well written, but then you get some other stories like, I think it was Master of the Forge or something. It's about one of Vulcan's Forge fathers going to spread out his artifacts after they thought he died on Istvan 5. And it's like, it has some okay moments, but other moments it's just like, this makes me want to bang my head against the wall. But Vulcan, I just want to see more stories where other writers do it, and then maybe he'll come back to my number one spot. But I think my number one spot is a tie between Lionel Johnson, of course, and maybe Jagatai Khan. Just because the Khan is so confident in who he is, and just, I like that he's like, I don't care what happens, I want to maintain my independence and my freedom. It's like, I vibe with that. That's pretty cool. You know, put your freedom first. Don't get checked into that box. And he never did. And he only sided with the Imperium because it's like, well, chaos is gross. You guys are gross. I don't like that. I'm definitely not doing that. But of course, Lionel Johnson, just because I'm a Dark Angels player, because I play Space Hulk Deathwing a lot, and that's what got me into Dark Angels, and they were my first army, and still love him. Love Johnson, even though he's an asshole with no people skills, but he's a great fighter. He's got some of the best fight scenes, and he's just cool. Even though I wish he wasn't such a charisma vacuum. But, you can't have your cake and eat it too, I guess.
I'm very excited to see him pop up in modern, like, 40K.
I can't wait.
Because, like,
Son of the Forest is so good.
I need to read it. Because I like current Gilman. I hate Heresy Gilman. I'm not super into Heresy Lionel Johnson. I hope that they just make him real cool. I also like the whole thing with like him looking almost exactly like that one actor who plays like Tywin Lannister.
Oh, Charles Dance.
Yeah, Charles Dance. And like someone did that comic of that discussion he had in like, I need you to like man up. Yeah, I need you to be Lannister now. Like that, someone did a comic with him talking to Gilliman like that.
Yeah,
like that is so good. I hope that's actually what he is.
It must be nice to having your youth.
Yeah, it's like, I need you to be a leader now, not tomorrow, not in a few years. Now. It's like,
you should have made Lionel. You should have made Lionel Johnson the War Master.
I feel like it should have been a co-War Master things, like have Horus and the Lion. Like the Lion could be Horus's sword, pun intended, but also Horus could just be the charisma, where the Lion is the one who gets stuff done. Horus could be the one to prop up everybody and make everybody feel at ease, but it's just like Horus had no backup. It's just, I feel like he wouldn't have turned traitor if one of his brothers stayed by his side.
Yeah.
With like the Interrex, with Davin, or if the Emperor just left some custodies with Horus, things would have turned out differently. It's just so many ways it could have been avoided. The Lion definitely thought he should have been War Master, and he was so spiteful.
Yeah, that's why they couldn't share it, right?
Yeah, I am.
It should have been me.
So loath to say this, incredibly, but Gilliman had the right idea with Imperium Secundus. The idea of like, it was three of them. Like Gilliman was the statesman, empire builder. Lionel Johnson was like the sword of the Imperium Secundus. He was like the military general head, and then Sanguinius was like the emperor, like surrogate, like the face to the public. Like that is the right way to do it, and I am very loath to give Gilliman any sort of credit during the Great Crusade era in the Horus Heresy. I hate to see it.
Speaking of Imperium Secundus, that's going to come back into play soon because of the Dark Imperium trilogy book. The way that it ends, I think it was a Pink Horror or a Lord of Change left a grimoire or a tome talking about the Imperium Secundus from a remembrancer, and it was given to an inquisitor.
Huh.
And now it's like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? Like an inquisitor is gonna be like, hey, Lords of Terra, did you know that there was a second Imperium that Gilliman made? And you already know the Lords of Terra hate Gilliman. It's like,
hate him.
That stuff is already strained. It's like, oh, you made a whole new Imperium because you thought the Emperor was dead, you heretic? He's gonna need the Lion to back him up. It's like, oh yeah, go ahead, try to fight us. Go ahead, I dare you.
Yeah, I mean, he's already got Trajan Valoris on the council for whenever they talk out of line, he just kind of moves the Watcher's axe, and then they all shut up.
He's like, let me take it back. Let me slide back.
I wouldn't challenge
my most hated. Oh hell no! But my most hated Primarch, probably Kurz, because I love to hate him, and his Primarch book is so disgusting, but it's so well written. Like Guy Haley is so great at breaking down things to make them feel so simple instead of everything feeling really full of itself. He's really great as an introductory writer for people who don't know the lore. Like the Dark Imperium trilogy, he did such a great job because he's so great at breaking it down for just the average person. But that Conrad Kurz book has some of the most grotesque moments I've ever read in 40K. It's disgusting. And there's like Dracula references that are really that work pretty well, like, like a whole Dracula Reinfeld moment that's pretty fun. But I would recommend reading that book because it really explains his character, but it also is just unhinged. It's an unhinged horror story.
I'm so ready to read it. Once I finish the current book I'm on, Mechanicus, I'm immediately going to be reading the Conrad Kurz Primarch book. You pitched it.
When you finish that.
You pitched it really well. It was like, oh shit, wait, it's just a horror book with like Conrad. Like that sounds amazing.
It's such a horror story with like some black humor sprinkled in there. It's so good. It's just disgusting. Like it just kept me up at night. I couldn't even sleep after reading that.
Yeah.
But I probably would say I also really hate I'd say I hate Fulgrim, just because I get it, the perfection thing, he's striving for that, but it was just, he was kind of just I don't know. I just didn't really vibe with him that well. I don't know if it's the Griffith thing, but I just didn't vibe with him that well. I just wasn't a big Fulgrim fan, and I don't hate Ferrus Manus. I just wish he'd had more, But yeah, I hate Conrad, hate Fulgrim. Like making fun of Fulgrim. It's funny. But
he is very fun to make fun of because if they actually were real, like he'd be the only Primarch that would actually get his feelings hurt if you made fun of him. He's the only one where it means anything to poke fun at.
Oh yeah, but yeah, he's just the Emperor's Children. I like Soul Tarvitz. I like R'hllonor.
They're
That's
great.
It.
Loyalist Emperor's
awesome.
Children are great.
Yeah, and now they're dead.
Yeah.
But now I guess I don't know. Maybe the Sons of the Phoenix have Fulgrim's gene seed. At least that's the theory. Who knows?
Yeah.
None of us chose Lorgar. That's all I'm like. Wow.
This is because I don't hate him, but at the same time I do feel bad.
I love seeing Lorgar appear and talk. His story is so interesting. I also just hate his personality. He's another one of he's so aggravating. I think the best way is I was hunting for this quote while we were discussing Lorgar, but I can't find the exact bit of it right now. But Gilliman had a really interesting thing to say about Lorgar, in that Lorgar is essentially a giant child, because he is so emotionally maladjusted, in that Lorgar is so quick to be any sort of kindness, best of friends, we're amazing, you and I, inseparable, and then any form of just you slight him once and he's immediately like a child throwing a tantrum, in that he just how he puts it, it specifically is just that is Lorcar's character. He is an actual man-child, but every single part of his story is so good that I can't hate him. It's another character where I'm I respect the hustle and I respect the grind, but oh my god, you suck.
Yeah, and it's just the Emperor could have handled it so much better. That's all it boils down to, right? Is that he could have just handled things a lot better.
Literally.
Could we have chosen to hate the Emperor instead of one of the Primarchs? Because
I definitely kind of hate the Emperor, honestly.
I mean, I don't know if we can hate the Emperor too much. He's pretty cool, not saying this is a Custodes player and a Custodes fanboy, so he's essentially my Primarch. I have to say it.
I play Custodes too, but hey, I haven't had the Kool-Aid.
I have. It's great.
Cherry flavored.
Yeah, oh shit, I forgot exactly what I was gonna mention with never mind. I completely spaced it.
The Emperor is so complicated.
Oh, I just found it. Okay. So, with that specific thing with Lorgar and how easy it could have been to just handle it, you guys know how long the Emperor was on Monarchia? Just hanging out when he first met Lorgar?
No, I have no idea.
It was days, right?
3 weeks. He was there
was he in disguise?
No, he was hanging out in public, seeing everyone worship him, seeing churches dedicated to this golden god that Lorgar kept seeing, statues of what he thought this golden god would look like, and the Emperor said nothing for 3 weeks. And then was hey, Lorgar, great meeting you. This was cool. By the way, here's the Imperial truth. I don't believe in gods. Anyways, peace out. Here's your army. Go have fun. And didn't say a fucking word about, worshipping him as a god. And then later comes out of nowhere to Lorgar of, how dare you worship me as a god? I know I didn't say anything when you first started revering me, but I wanted you to stop.
It's just, oh my god. That's the thing. The Emperor is I can't. There has to be a whole video just on the Emperor, because there's much contradicting evidence on this man.
He did Angron pretty dirty too. Showed up on his planet and said, hey, you can come with me, I'll give you a legion, we can conquer the galaxy together. And Angron was like,
said,
no, I have people down on the planet that I love, like these little barbarian kind of tribe thing. He's like, I'm helping them take over the tyrannical kind of government that's taken place here. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he just waits in his ship. The Emperor just waits in his ship to the exact moment where the battle starts, when they need Angron on the battlefield the most, and just teleports him up to the ship. And then Angron just sits on the ship and watches all of his friends die. It's like, dude, you're making this guy.
Yeah, and I honestly, there's also, if kind of extra funny from based on what we were just talking about, if Lorgar is to be believed, if he's right, there is the chance that Angron and his boys don't remember the event right, because according to Lorgar, it was just Angron around a lot of corpses of the other, like, gladiators in their area. Like, just very implied that he went full butcher's nail, killed them all, and he actually, the Emperor was like, oh, god damn it, okay, just beam him up here.
Oh,
but that's
that is so much cooler of a story.
Yeah, it's so much, it makes more sense, where you're like, this is so much more justified, and then it turns that, like, that interaction into Lorgar has this massive misplaced anger toward the Emperor, and the Emperor just doesn't think it's, like, good for Angron to think otherwise. Like, I could tell him that, like, yeah, I was wrong, like, oh yeah, you were wrong, I actually took you out of a pile of corpses of your brothers. Like, that wouldn't do any better. And instead it was like, I'm just gonna let him be angry at me because it's more healthy for him. And then look where that went. But
almost like a martyr.
Yeah, and that is, and I don't think that is 100% confirmed. So it is another possibility in the many, many long line of 40K is an entire setting written by an unreliable narrator based on whoever is talking at the time. Yeah.
But I love that. I didn't know that part, and when you mention it, it makes that story so much cooler through the fact that he may have just gone red and killed all of his own guys. It's like so awesome.
It's super cool, and it's all it
does make sense.
It makes sense, and it honestly could also be something that was written to clear up that part, because there's so many points of just the Emperor doing something weird and, like, dumb, like, to set up the, like, almost the betrayal, because it's one of the many perils of when you have to write in reverse. You have, like, the end event being the Emperor on the Golden Throne. These are the Primarchs that are evil. And you have to write backwards of, like, why they did it. It's why Magnus with Prospero and, like, the actual siege and his betrayal is kind of really weird, like, weirdly written, and feels kind of forced, because it has to be. They set up Magnus as a character and then had to follow through and make him evil because, like, they had to force his character into that position. And not all the time does it mesh super well, and it takes a very skilled hand to do that, and not everyone can do that consistently.
That's a good point. Sheesh. So we all agree, Fulgrim is stinky.
I also am not a fan of Fulgrim. I hate Slaanesh. I hate the Slaanesh, like, vibe and aesthetic. It's least favorite.
I hate it. It's like crabs or snake. Pick one.
Yeah. Pick one creature.
You can't have both.
Crabs would be cooler, since, like, everything will eventually evolve into a crab at some point. Like,
right? Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. That is cooler.
SpongeBob.
Yeah. Mr. Krabs is somewhere in the warp.
The Emperor just comes back as Mr. Krabs. Mr. Zeech, you're hogging all me souls. That'd be great. The Emperor's claw just becomes a literal, just golden crab claw. Oh god, that's a commission right there.
Yeah, Crab Emperor.
But I do think for this episode, that's a good place to end right there. Mm-hmm. Now, we all agree, Perturabo, man-child, definitely needs to cope instead of sieve.
For real.
Angron may have misplaced memories, which makes it even more tragic. And Alfarius, maybe I'm Alfarius, maybe you're a Magon, maybe we're all Alfarius, who knows?
Right.
Who knows? But that's going to be it for this week. Thank you guys for joining me.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was good.
And until next time, you guys stay tuned.